England has just announced plans to ban social media for children under 16. Now, before we argue whether or not this is a good or a bad idea, let's make sure we're asking the right question. I mean, what happened that caused an entire country to even consider this? Because whether the law passes or not, one thing is clear. Governments are beginning to do something that many parents still aren't willing to do. Today, we're talking about social media, parenting, and who's really discipling the next generation. I'm Trent Stewart, and this is the Trent Stewart Podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Again, my goal is to help people understand the times and know what to do. And so today we're going to understand the times. Here in England, they have just announced plans to ban social media for children under 16. Now, some people think this is a terrible idea. Others think it's long overdue. But before we decide whether England is right or wrong, I think we need to ask a different question. What happened that caused this country to even consider this? Now, to help you get an understanding of what this is, let's take a look at this clip that was on the news this past week.
Children in the UK under the age of 16 will soon no longer be able to legally access social media platforms. That's because of a new policy announced today by the Prime Minister.
This is a big step. Real change for our children and our future. And it's clear to me that a full ban is the right choice.
The ban will mean no access to platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, though messaging services such as WhatsApp and Signal will not be affected. The government is, however, also planning on new restrictions on gaming and live streaming platforms, as well as platforms which allow children to interact with strangers online. Now, the move comes with some controversy and debate over its effectiveness, but it follows examples set by the likes of Spain and Australia. The British government says it carried out consultations with parents, young people, and industry leaders, receiving more than 100,000 responses. And according to the data, 9 in 10 British parents backed the ban, with more than 83% of parents who responded saying the risks from social media outweighed the benefits. CNN has reached out to several tech companies that own platforms affected by the ban. A spokesperson for Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, told CNN that the firm is working to keep children safe online and has implemented features that limit who can contact them as well as the content they see. The ban itself won't come into effect immediately, with the bill set to be brought before Parliament before Christmas and implemented next spring, and there are still further measures under consideration.
Okay, so what we saw there is a news story from CNN, and we saw Keir Starmer, who's the UK Prime Minister, and by the time this podcast is released, he will have already resigned. He actually did it today, right before we recorded this. But what we're learning here is that England's proposed restrictions are really some of the strongest in the world on social media in this ban. England isn't the first country to do this. Australia was the first. Greece has also put something similar in place. And there are other countries that have put some things in place or are about to in the same lane. And so these governments are finally doing something to protect our children. And I think it's remarkable. It's a remarkable moment because we're no longer debating whether social media affects children. They're finally admitting that there are moral consequences to giving these social media platforms to our kids, and that is a good thing. When you think about it, we've done so little to protect our children, particularly in the U.S. I mean, even Christian parents are doing so little to protect their kids in America. In many ways, parents have really abandoned their responsibility, and they've stuck their head in the sand, and they're hoping their teenagers just end up okay. And that, their teenager doesn't become another, statistic. Now, Australia has already banned social media, and that was roughly about 6 months ago. And so there's a survey that they put out that said that 70% of the parents say that their kids still use the platforms. So I guess one of the questions is, how are you going to enforce this type of law? I mean, Kids are way more savvy with technology than their parents, so they're gonna find a way to be able to access these platforms. So in another clip, the British Prime Minister, he actually gives a good argument for this. He says, just because kids underage can find ways to purchase alcohol and use it, it doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a law saying that they can't. And so that's good reasoning. I mean, the way that I understand this law in England is that they're not going to be able, or they're not really going to be policing children and parents over whether or not they're going to comply to this ban, but they are going to be sanctioning the social media platforms if they're not complying with the age limits. And so you can see that, hey, I mean, this might be a good moneymaker for the government if they're going to start imposing sanctions because, they found X number of young people still on those platforms. And so it's really going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm also curious if we're going to see some social media apps created specifically geared towards kids next. And if so, are those social media apps going to be deemed appropriate for kids in England? And who in the British government has already invested millions of dollars to create these social media apps, for kids? And now they're going to become, millionaires or billionaires. Call me skeptical, but anytime governments do something like this, I just wonder who are they doing it for and how much money are they actually going to make. But here's the truth. Social media is contributing to a huge rise in anxiety and depression and self-harm and addiction and mental health struggles among children and teenagers. Now, whether the law in England ultimately passes or not, it isn't the most important part of this story. I think the important part is that governments are beginning to do something that many parents aren't willing to do. And that's pretty unbelievable. I mean, in the United States, we've got to wake up. And so whether the U.S. government creates a similar law, parents need to protect their children. Social media is shaping our kids more than we ever could imagine. And it really happened so quickly. I mean, the iPhone was introduced in 2007, Instagram in 2010, and then TikTok exploded onto the scene in the 2010s. And in less than 20 years, we've handed children devices that provide unlimited access to entertainment and social comparison and strangers and influencers and pornography and now our artificial intelligence. And it's led to constant distraction. And now the average teenager, the statistic is the average teenager spends more than 7 hours a day on screen-based activity. It's not including, schoolwork or homework. And so for all the wrong and evil things that the government in England has done, this one they're getting right. But here in the US, we can't wait for the government to do something. We've got to start parenting better. There's a great book by Jonathan Haidt, and it's called The Anxious Generation, and it's very helpful for us when it comes to the social media conversation. He argues that when we introduce children to social media, we fundamentally rewired childhood. For thousands of years, childhood was built around play and kids playing outside, and they learned how to solve conflicts, and they took risks, and they learned independence. They developed resilience. And then around 2010, it started to change drastically. And so children moved from a play-based childhood to a phone-based childhood. Instead of spending time with friends face-to-face, they increasingly interacted through screens. And so instead of developing confidence through real-world experiences, many began seeking validation through likes and views and comments and followers. And so Haidt's points to a dramatic rise beginning around 2012 with anxiety, depression, self-harm, and other mental health challenges, particularly among teenage girls. And so his argument isn't that social media causes every problem, but his argument is that something significant happened when these smartphones and social media became dominant. And so for girls, social media often becomes like a nonstop cycle of comparison and performance and a lot of social pressure. And for boys, the problem often looks different. Boys tend to retreat into gaming and pornography and isolation. And so the end result is that girls tend to become more anxious and boys tend to become more withdrawn. And so for Christian parents, this is important. We've got to answer this question. What is social media doing to our children? And as a Christian, I think there's even a deeper question. I mean, we're asking the question, who's really discipling our children, our teenagers? Because ultimately, that's what we're talking about here when we evaluate social media. It's about discipleship and the formation of a generation. Now, certainly there are some good things that, social media can accomplish, but we also have to be honest about the evil it has unleashed. Everybody's being shaped by something. And the reality is that the algorithms are discipling our kids. And social media doesn't merely deliver content, it shapes values, it shapes beliefs, it creates a standard for beauty and success and happiness and identity and truth. And the Bible has always understood this principle. I mean, Romans 12 tells it like this. It says that we are transformed by the renewing of our minds. Psalm 1 teaches that what we continually consume shapes who we become. And then in Deuteronomy 6, it commands parents to intentionally teach God's truth to our children throughout our daily rhythms and daily life. And so Scripture assumes something our culture often forgets, and that's people become like what they consistently consume. And that's why this issue matters so much. The real issue is who is going to shape your child's heart, your teenager's heart. And so what should we do as faithful Christians? I think, first of all, we don't want to wait for the government to solve this problem. Parents have a responsibility, right? No government policy can replace parenting. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, my kid will be the only one who doesn't have Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat or whatever. And they're going to say, Mom, Dad, you are killing my social life. All my friends communicate through Snapchat and I'm the only one that's not there, right? I mean, kids have been using this strategy since the dawn of mankind. I'm the only one who can't watch the movie. I'm the only one who's not allowed to go to the party. I'm the only one who can't drive or who can't whatever. It's an effective strategy on parents because guilt is always an effective strategy to get your way. But parents, you have to hold the line. That leads me to the second clip that I want us to look at. This is from Channel 4 in England. This guy's interviewing these teenage girls, and particularly listen to the first thing that she says, and I'll pause it to make sure you get it.
We won't really know what to do without it.
Really?
I think so, because we're so reliant on it. We use it for everything. So we don't know a simple task. We'll go search on TikTok. How do you do this? How do you do that? And say we have homework. How do you work out this? How do you do that? We just use it for everything, and it will be kind of hard to move away from it and find an alternative.
And how about you, Ishal? What do you think?
When I first heard about the ban, I was really shocked. The ban was supposed to be for us, but in that moment when I first saw it, I felt like the government wasn't on my side. They didn't care, because it was my generation, people that I know who were going to go through it. But we weren't being spoken to. We weren't being asked hey, is social media actually a really bad thing, or do we just think it's a bad thing? And I think because me and so many other people love social media, we think that it's a community, it's the only escape that we have from our pretty much unsafe areas. It's going to be so weird that they take it away from us.
Okay. So what we see in this clip it's amazing. It's these young girls who really, by what they're saying, they're showing us, without even knowing it, that they are indeed addicted to social media. And so if you remove social media from this generation, what's going to happen is they're not going to know what to do. I mean, you can tell someone's addicted to something when they say, and I quote from this girl, "We don't really know what to do without it." Think about that. We're not going to really know what to do without it. And that's kind of the issue, isn't it? It's become part of this generation's identity. We won't know how to solve problems, she said, without it. But she did say something I want to make sure you heard there. She said, it will be kind of hard to move away from it and find an alternative. So that's interesting, because if you spend 7 hours a day with something and then somebody takes it away from you, these kids are going to have a really hard time knowing what to do with all this time. So what is the alternative? I mean, parents, I want to tell you this. If you have smaller children, and you haven't given a phone to your child yet, I'm trying to help you today with this podcast. You need to learn from this generation. My generation of parents who were caught off guard by all of these social media apps, we didn't know what was going on when it was all created. But now that we have seen the effects, now you need to learn from our generation as parents who failed in this way and so much, and also learn from the teenagers themselves. We're not going to know what to do. I mean, in my generation, we didn't obviously have cell phones like this. And so my kids and my kids are grown adults now in their 20s. And, they ask me questions. They're like, Dad, what did you do like with your life? Like, what did you do as a kid? Like, did you even have TV? And I'm like, yes, we had TV, but they don't even know what it's like to go outside and play basketball in the driveway. They don't know what it's like to, hang out with the kids in the neighborhood and go hang out in the woods and play wiffle ball and do all the different things that we just kind of did naturally as kids. They literally don't have the skills to do that. And when you go out to eat and you see parents and you see them hand the iPad to their, little 3-year-old so that they watch YouTube so that they can have dinner together, we're not teaching our kids how to have dinner in public. They don't know how to act. People don't take their kids to the grocery store anymore. And so think of all the teaching opportunities you have when you take your young child to the grocery store to say hello to people, when they want everything on the shelf and you tell them no, and then them learning how to regulate their emotions when you say no. And yeah, they're going to have crash outs, and yeah, there's going to be things, but there's so much that you can teach your kids when you go to the grocery store. And so all that to say, I mean, we've got to learn from this generation. And parents, I would just encourage you, this brings me to the second point here. We've got to seriously evaluate what you're doing with your smartphone and social media as far as access to your kids. And so my recommendation is not to give your kids a smartphone before high school. And I would say no social media before the age of 16. And you may agree or disagree with me, but at minimum, parents should stop assuming unlimited access is harmless. Children need boundaries. And I think this kind of goes into school as well. I mean, I think all schools should ban phones. It should be a phone-free environment. Leave them at home. Because it's so much a part of their daily routine, even at school, in class, in between class, even in the lunchroom, in the cafeteria, when they're supposed to be interacting with each other and having conversations, like they're looking at their phone. And so, yeah, I say leave the phones at home. And so third, I would say prioritize real world relationships with your kids. This means you've got to be intentional. Like, children need friends that they can see, not just friends that they have online. Conversations they can have face to face. They've got to have play-based childhood friends more than just phone-based, childhoods. And so for boys, I would also encourage you to really think about limiting online gaming. Of course, some of those games are totally inappropriate, and so you wouldn't want your kids playing those games at all. They're rated, mature or whatever. Like we've got to really see that. Like when I was growing up, the games that we were playing, if you're as old as I am, GoldenEye, or even earlier than that, like Duck Hunt. These games, looking back, were they terrible? Not really. It wasn't so realistic. But what we have today, man, it is graphic. Like it is beyond what we could have imagined as kids. And young kids just they shouldn't see it, and they shouldn't be involved in it at all. And so we've got to parent stronger. Fourth, I would say we've got to evaluate your own habits. So if you've been with me on this podcast and you're amening in your car, or you're at the gym and you're running and you're like, heck yeah, man, this is what we got to do. And this one is going to hit you between the eyes, because here's the thing. It's not just a kid problem, bro. It's an adult problem. Many adults are addicted to TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. And when you do this, man, you are comparing yourself as you scroll. You're chasing approval and likes. And we allow these algorithms to shape our own emotions and attention. I could have had a great day at work, and I go home and I sit on the back porch and I'm enjoying the weather. And then I open up Instagram or X, and now all of a sudden I'm angry at what's happened in some country on the other side of the world or what's happened in some city I've never been to. And now I'm frustrated and mad. It's happened. It happens to you all the time. So the issue is, what is it doing to all of us? I mean, that's really what we have to think. And so finally, I would say Christians have got to recommit themselves to intentional discipleship. And so when we talk about all of this, the answer is not fear. The answer is not abandoning technology altogether. The answer is intentional formation. So do you have someone in your life who's discipling you? And have you put your kids, your teenagers, your children in environments where there are other adult leaders forming and discipling your own kids? And I've said this a million times, like there's going to be a time when your kids get to an age where they stop listening to mom and dad. And so that's really a vital time in their life, but they need an adult leader, a spiritual leader in their life that will say basically the same things you're going to say, but they're going to listen to that person even when they're not going to listen to you. So I'm talking about your kids, but I'm also talking about a real person in your life that's discipling you. I'm not talking about I'm in a Bible study or I listen to podcasts. I'm talking about, is there a real person who knows you and is pouring into your life? Adults, you need this. And obviously, so do your children and teenagers. But at my church, we call them small groups. We also have mentor relationships. We have counselors, we have coaches, we have all these different relational levels and environments designed for a more mature believer to pour into others, adults and young children. So make sure you are involved in a church that is doing that. Obviously, personally, we want to read scripture and pray and all of those things. As a family, eat meals together, prioritize worship together, and have those meaningful conversations while they are young. Because if we are intentionally shaping our life spiritually, something else will. Now, whether England gets this right or wrong is almost beside the point. The fact that an entire country is having this conversation should be a wake-up call. Governments are beginning to recognize that social media is shaping our children. The question is whether parents will recognize it too. Well, that's it for today. If you want more resources, visit trentstewart.org. If you'd like to purchase my new book, Christ Killers, visit christkillers.org. Thanks for joining me today. Until next time, understand the times and know what to do.